Hey Stampers, Kim from stampingandperfection.com. Thanks for joining me today. This is part 3 of my Nuvo Embellishment Mousse video series, and these are from yesterday. I created these yesterday. These are just little strips of scrap paper that I had, scrap cardstock that I had around, and I watercolored them with the mousse. So that's on the part 2 video that I showed you. And then I took them over to my Big Shot and I put those strips down on a sheet of the Sizzix double-sided adhesive, and I die cut sentiments out. I haven't popped out all the parts of those, but I just want to show you how those turned out. Like, I just love the way those were just scraps of paper. I was just experimenting with watercoloring with the mousse, and I love the way it came out. I've got a lot of texture. That's the one that I just did all in the fresh copper, I think it's called, and it almost looks like shiny wood. I love that. For that I used those are free dies I got from My Favorite Thing stamps, MFT stamps. If you place a qualifying order, they actually send you a free die. And the hello and love you came as a free die gift from MFT stamps. The other 2 script ones that I cut out are from a set that I got from Simon Says. It's a set of 5 different sentiments, and I just love the way these came out on this mousse watercoloring. So like, I just mixed a little bit of that mousse, spritzed it with water, stirred it all up to let the mousse dissolve, and then I basically just took a paintbrush and painted it on my cardstock, and it came out so pretty. And I'm thinking that those strips, doing like that, they were so quick to do, they dried fairly quickly, and if I'd saved some longer pieces, they would make really pretty strips down the side of your card. What I want to do now, though, is I'm going to use this week's Papercraft Cruise sketch. It's a very clean and simple sketch. It's a 2-week sketch. If you want to join us, we would love to have you at papercraftcrew.com. But I'm going to use one of these as my sentiment along the bottom. The sketch actually calls for a sentiment along the bottom to the right, and then something small in the upper left-hand corner. It's a very clean and simple sketch this week. So I pulled out Concord & Nine's Songbird stamp set. I love the stamp set. I think it's a great stamp set for all year long. And I'm going to take a couple of the leaf images and I want to kind of make it look like they're cascading or falling down the page. And really, I should probably, if I'm following the sketch closely, just have one of those, but I decided I want both of those. And I'm just, by the way, testing that. I had used that gigantic jumbo sponge dauber for the stenciling technique that I used a few days before, and I hadn't washed it out. I wanted to see if it would get stiff. It's a little stiff around the edges, but actually it will be fine to reuse, although I definitely will be washing them out in the future. So I pull out my mini MISTI, and I've got this piece of white cardstock, Unisolar white, cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm just placing these leaf images in here, and I'm going to heat set them. I decide that I want to heat set them because I want a watercolor, and I'm still trying to decide, do I want a watercolor with those embellishment mousses, or do I want a watercolor with the inks? And I haven't really got, like, I've got a lot of metal colors, but I only have a handful of actual colors. All of these mousses give your project a metallic sheen, but I mostly have like actual metallic colors also. So I'm just inking this with my Versamark ink. Then I'm going to use my white embossing powder, which you can see I have in a big tub. I use my embossing powder so much more now that I got this gigantic tub. works so well. I got white embossing powder on the clearance rack, and I just threw it all in this big gigantic plastic tub I actually had in my kitchen cabinet, and I use it, I embellish things so much more. And that's just a Swiffer I use to clean off my table, clean the dust off my table, and I'm just going to heat set this. And I'm thinking that I'm probably going to use my Catherine Pooler inks. I have 4 Catherine Pooler inks that I love to put together for fall cards, and I love how vibrant her inks are. And I'm thinking that I'm going to use those instead of the embellishment mousse because I can, I just like the colors of them. So I decided to pull those out. So I have the 4 colors, as I said. So I'm going to pull out Catherine Pooler's Mandarin Spice, her Icing on the Cake, her Eucalyptus, and Sauna. These are my 4 favorite colors to use on a fall card. So I'm just going to smush a little ink on that Ranger craft mat. I love this craft mat. I say this every time I use it. Spritz it with my distress sprayer. Then I'm just going to grab a paintbrush, and I'm going to add a little water. And I put a little water on the card, and I wish I'd put a little less, only because I had a little warping issue later that you'll see at the end when I get all done with the card. But I just want to drop the color in, and I just want to let it mix together. What I found really interesting on this card was that this card stock really soaked it up. So now I'm wondering, what cardstock is this? Because the Nina Solar White doesn't usually do this. I mean, these are bright, vibrant inks, and they're just soaking into the paper, and I feel like I'm losing all my color. But I don't hate it. I kind of like the muted look, so I'm trying to drop in, you know, a little bit more of the yellow and the orange, but it's really just soaking in, and it's curious. So I'm just going to blast this with my heat tool to dry it a little bit. And I could go back and add some more ink if I wanted to. I could add some more of the Catherine Pooler inks. But instead, I'm going to add just a little bit of color with my Copic markers. And I have 3 yellow colors that I'm going to pull out. And I'm just going to put a few, like 3 or 4 strokes of each color. I pull out 3 colors along the bottom part of each leaf and along the tip of each leaf. So I apologize that this is off the screen, but I'm using Y11, Y13, and Y15. Or actually it's Y11, Y13, and Y17, I believe. And I'm just doing some flicking, like 3 times. You see me there at the tip. That's exactly what I'm doing on the whole thing. And I'm going to show you the colors in a minute to make sure. Yeah, Y11, Y11, Y13, and Y17 is the correct way to say that. I've been taking a Copic coloring class. So it's pretty muted. It's not as bright as I expected when I decided to pull out the inks. But I've got this powder blue embellishment mousse that I've been dying to try, so I opened it up, and I love when I watercolor to put a little blue, a very light blue, like wash around the image. So that's what I'm doing with this embellishment mousse, and I just love, as I'm putting this on, I love how shiny this is. I just cannot believe the sheen. The mica powder in this is amazing. I tried pulling out my Swiffer and just buffing the leaf, but it just made it shinier. It didn't remove because I went right over the leaves with that embellishment mousse, and I'm very glad I did that because I love the look. It just made it interesting. And the next thing I'm going to do is I want to put some more embellishment mousse, but I have this mother of pearl color that I love, love, love. It's almost like a soft, creamy color. It does add a little color to the card, but not very much. It's like a very light, creamy yellow. And I'm going to go over the blue a little bit over the leaves there and just kind of blend it. And I really like the way these are kind of blending. It gives me almost a soft, very pale green color where they are blending. And I'm going to cover the rest of that card. I just pulled out a piece of scrap paper thinking that I would try to keep my fingers out of the mousse, but my fingers aren't actually causing any damage there. I'm just trying not to get it on my fingers and spread it to other parts of my project here. But I really am loving this. It is just shiny and beautiful. And the softness of that powder blue and the mother of pearl and the way my inks turned out was amazing. And these are the jumbo sponge daubers from scrapbook.com. Gina K carries these. You can get them on Amazon. I really like these, actually. I bought like 8 of them when they were, or not 8, I bought like 10 of them when they were on sale, and they are washable. And you saw that I took that around the edge, just like I would with a regular sponge or dauber, and just color the edge, and I just really like it. So I'm just going to clean up my work area so I don't transfer this stuff, and I am getting this on my fingers, so I'm being careful to wipe off my fingers. And I almost grabbed that mini mister with the black ink to give some splatter, but I decided I wanted to see what gold splatter would look like, so I pulled out the Indian Gold Embellishment Mousse, and you saw how little I used there. Like this embellishment mousse, it takes so little to do anything. This stuff is going to last me forever as long as you keep the container closed. Like, notice that as soon as I pulled it out, I closed up the container. Oh, look at those dots. I just mixed it up, and you do want to keep like remixing as you go back in that because the mica powder does settle. So if you're watercoloring with it, you want to mix it every time you go to pick up some ink. Now I'm going to pull out that powder blue because now I want to see what that looks like splattered on top. I love the gold. Like, I really can't believe how pretty that came out. I'm just wiping off my brush. I did spritz that powder blue mousse with some water. And now I'm going to mix that. Mixing it just dissolves that mousse. That mousse is water soluble, so it dissolves in the water, and it becomes just like your ink or your watercolor paints when you do it. Although it's very hard when you're watercoloring with it to get a lot of shading. So I really like how this came out. Like, I can't believe how soft and shiny and pretty it all looks. Like, it just really muted the leaves. It's all very subtle, and I'm going to actually put this aside to let those drops dry because I'm in the habit of rushing a project and moving on too quickly before I let that stuff dry. So I'm pulling out my laminated grid paper, and I'm also pulling out that sentiment that I die cut from that rainbow strip I made experimenting yesterday with watercoloring on cardstock. And I'm going to just create a card base that is white cardstock it's going to be actually 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm going to score it at 4 1/4. And I'm going to put, here's the thing I wish I'd done differently on this card. I actually used the 3M foam tape. So you'll see me put foam tape here. I put it on the card base because the card itself was wet, and I was anxious to get this card done because it's just so pretty. Excuse me. But what I wish I'd done instead was cut a piece of white craft foam to cover the entire card, because the not covering the entire thing with foam tape actually causes it to wrinkle up in the corner. I don't know whether the paper was still a little wet, probably up under those leaves that I watercolored with the ink, and it was a little, you can see that it's a little warped from doing that. It's just cardstock, it's not, and I'm showing you the Simon Says stamp set, or die cut set that this sentiment came from. It's got 5 sentiments. These are so pretty. They have a holiday version of this out too that they just came out with, by the way. That beautiful script, it goes all the way across a 5.5-inch card. So I kept all the inside pieces because I'm thinking I could use those other strips and pop those inside pieces in too. Like, that's not wasted. So, you know, I'm hanging on to those just in case I decided to do something with that. And that's the one I created from the piece of paper that I just like smushed it on the leftover mousse mixed with water on my craft mat. So I'm just pulling off the, because when I die cut sentiments and things like this, I always use that double-sided adhesive sheet. I have been using Sizzix, but I just got some from Elizabeth Crafts, and it comes in all different size sheets, so I really like it. So I'm just putting that sentiment on the bottom, and I'm using my laminated grid paper here just to line it up so I make sure I get that sentiment straight. I find that there's those little sentiments when you die cut them, they actually are very easy to get crooked because I could actually curve them into a curve if I wanted to. So I wanted it straight across the bottom of the card because I do want to kind of use this card sketch from Papercraft Crew this week because I love the card sketch. And you can see how warped that paper is. Like, clearly I should have used a piece of foam behind it, but from the perspective I'm sitting at, I don't see that it's as warped as it is. So I'm just bringing that negative piece in just to kind of line it up and make sure it's straight. And now I'm going to add that to that card base. And this is where it wrinkles, and I'm a little disappointed that it wrinkled because I just love how soft and beautiful it is. That sheen is just like magic. I think I'm going to use that mother of pearl and that powder blue mousse over everything. It just looks like the inside of a seashell. So I push it down, and because there's space between on the left hand side and the upper left hand corner, you can see it kind of, and I fuss with it, but it's not going to help. I tried putting a little piece of tape underneath it, but it didn't help at all. So I'm going to actually add some, I'm going to try to pull it up with the spatula and see if I can bend it back. There's no working with this. I do get a little piece of foam tape under it. It helps a little bit, but there is a crease there. So I'm going to pull out my clear drops. I pull out the actually the iridescent drops from Studio Katia. Actually, no, these are the clear ones. And I put like 5 or 6 down. I'm going to attach those with the multimedia mat, and I use my quick stick, my We Are Memory Keepers quick stick, and I just fuss with this a little bit. But that actually is going to complete my card. And even with the little warping, I just love the subtleness of this card. And I have to try this on dark cardstock. On my blog, I'm going to try this on my cardstock. So stop on my blog at stampingimperfection.com. Make sure you give this video a like and come back tomorrow because I have way more to show you with these embellishment mousses.